Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. So we can do a deep dive into
Nvidia.
Nvidia. Yeah, everyone's been talking about their stock lately with all the ups and downs in the market.
Right.
You sent over a really interesting analysis,
Yeah,
um, breaking down their potential for recovery, long-term success and all that. And we want to dig into that a bit.
that's right. Yeah, it's a really insightful piece. It kind of starts by looking at, the overall market concerns and then really hones in on, Nvidia specifically. And
NVDA, that's their ticker, right?
that's right. Yeah, Nvidia, if you're looking it up on, your
Okay.
trading platforms,
Yeah,
right?
that's AQ, exactly.
Um, Yeah, so it's interesting because, like you said, it starts with this bigger picture of like market anxiety, right? Like the tech world has been a little bit of a roller coaster the last couple of years.
It has, yeah, and it's interesting how the analysis connects that, kind of current uncertainty that we're seeing to, very specific things that have happened in the past.
Yeah, like I don't know if you remember, but a while back we had all that stuff with the trade wars and
Oh,
tariffs.
yeah, right.
Former President Trump really pushing, tariffs, especially on things like semiconductor chips.
Like the ones manufactured outside the U.S.
Exactly. Yeah, and that kind of thing. And it doesn't just impact the price directly, it really kind of creates this ripple effect across the whole industry.
Right. It's like this signal that things could be unstable.
Yeah, a sense of unpredictability for sure. Makes companies nervous about, inflation, corporate profits even, like, is the economy going to be okay?
Right. All that trickles down.
Yeah, exactly. And so the tech sector obviously, really feels that impact.
Oh, for sure.
And the analysis even points out like the Nasdaq Q 100, it was down over 11% at one point.
Yeah.
And a lot of individual tech stocks, they were seeing even bigger drops, like 20% or more.
Oof. That's rough.
Yeah, it can be pretty unnerving to watch, But the analysis actually does something really smart. It compares all of this to what happened during the bear market back in 2022.
Right. Like, are we seeing the same thing again?
Exactly. And that's the thing. The analysis really emphasizes that the underlying situation is actually pretty different this time.
Okay. As how so?
Well, back then in 2022, inflation was a lot higher, like significantly higher.
Oh, right. Yeah, it was crazy.
And the Federal Reserve, they were really hitting the brakes hard, raising interest rates over and over.
To try and, like, get inflation under control.
Exactly. Yeah, that was their main tool. But what's interesting now is that, inflation is actually getting pretty close to that 2% target that the Fed wants.
Really? It's come down that much?
Yeah, it has. And the U.S. economy, it's actually looking pretty healthy right now.
Hmm.
Corporate earnings are strong, productivity is up. So it's not a simple repeat of what happened in 2022.
That's a huge point.
Right.
I think people just automatically assume it's the same thing.
Right. And it's not.
So, okay, so if the broader market situation is different, what does that mean for Nvidia specifically?
Mhm.
Because that's really what we're here to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where the analysis gets really interesting because it argues that, even with all this market volatility, NVIDIA's core business is still extremely strong.
Okay.
Like their fundamentals are solid, and they have this dominant position in the AI data center market, which, as we all know, is just exploding right now.
It's like AI is the buzzword of the century at this point.
It really is. And the analysis makes this point that NVIDIA isn't just, participating in AI. They're providing the essential tools that everyone else needs to actually make it work.
Like the picks and shovels of the AI gold rush.
Exactly. Yeah. And it really dives into like the specifics, like how NVIDIA's GPUs and their AI systems they're basically essential for developing all these advanced AI models and, the applications that we're starting to see everywhere.
They're not just making chips. They're like the foundation of all this AI stuff.
Yeah, they're the infrastructure and, the analysis provides a lot of historical context too. It points out how well NVIDIA has actually performed financially over the past decade.
Yeah, I mean, I remember back in the day, they were mainly known for graphics cards for like gaming and
Oh,
stuff.
right, exactly. But they've really pivoted and it's paid off big time.
So like, how well are we talking?
Well, the analysis says they've seen exponential growth, in revenue, operating income, free cash flow. And a lot of that is driven by their data center business.
So they were smart to bet on that.
Very smart. And it throws out this number that just kind of blows your mind. They had $6.85 billion in free cash flow in 2023.
6.85 billion would it be?
Yeah, that puts them right up there with the giants, like Apple, Google, Microsoft.
That's a crazy amount of money.
It is, and it's not just about the number itself, it's what they can do with it, right? They
Okay.
can invest heavily in research and development.
Yeah.
They can buy back stock, they can issue dividends, they have a lot of flexibility.
So that kind of financial strength gives them a huge advantage.
Huge advantage. Yeah, and it lets them really capitalize on this, what the analysis calls the AI arms race.
The AI arms race. Okay. I like that.
It's a good way to put it, right? Because with all these breakthroughs happening in AI, like, we were talking about ChatGPT,
Yeah.
it's created this enormous demand for the technology that powers it, and everybody wants to be a part of it, right? So you've got all these companies, cloud providers, AI labs, they're all investing heavily in Nvidia's technology.
Makes sense because they need those powerful chips to build their AI capabilities.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is that the analysis suggests this isn't just like a temporary spike in demand.
Okay.
It's saying that as these AI models become more sophisticated, but also more cost-effective to run, we're going to see them integrated into more and more applications across all kinds of industries.
So it's not just a tech thing anymore.
Exactly. It's going to be everywhere, and NVIDIA's right there in the middle of it all.
So they're kind of future-proofing themselves in a way.
Yeah. Yeah, you could definitely say that. And they're not resting on their laurels either. The analysis talks about these new platforms they're developing, Blackwell and Rubin.
Those names sound familiar. I think I read something about those.
Yeah, they're supposed to be pretty groundbreaking. They're designed for both training AI models, which is that really computationally intensive part, and inference, which is, actually using the trained models in the real world.
So they're covering both ends of the spectrum.
Exactly. And that kind of end-to-end capability is a big deal.
Right, because it means they're not just relying on one part of the market.
Exactly. And the analysis also highlights something that I think is really important. It's not just about the hardware with NVIDIA.
What do you mean?
They're also leaders in the software that makes all this AI stuff actually work, software stacks and all that.
Oh, right. So they have expertise on both sides.
Yeah, and that gives them a huge edge because they can optimize everything, make sure the hardware and software work perfectly together.
It's like a one-stop shop for all your AI needs.
Pretty much, and that makes it very hard for competitors to keep up.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So with all this in mind, the analysis then kind of shifts gears and it starts talking about valuation,
Like, what's NVIDIA actually worth right now?
Exactly, because that's the big question for investors right after those recent declines. Is this a good time to buy NVIDIA stock?
So what does the analysis say?
Well, it seems to think that the stock is actually undervalued at its current price.
Really?
Yeah, it points to the forward price to earnings ratio, which is 27.
Okay, and that's low.
Well, it's considered pretty low for a company like NVIDIA, especially given their growth expectations.
Oh, right, because if they're expected to grow a lot, that ratio should be higher.
Exactly, and the growth projections are pretty amazing. The analysis says they're expecting 50% revenue growth this year.
50% this year?
Yeah, and then 23% the year after.
So that's not just growth, that's like hyper growth.
Right. And then you look at the earnings per share growth, it's even more dramatic, 51% this year and then 128% the next year.
Those are some seriously impressive numbers.
Yeah, and it all points to, a lot of potential for future profitability.
So it's like the stock price hasn't caught up to how well the company's actually doing.
That's the idea. And then there's the free cash flow.
Yeah.
The analysis talks about how it could potentially hit $90 billion by 2024.
$90 billion. That's just insane.
It is. And that kind of cash flow, it can generate a lot of value for investors down the road.
Through dividends and buybacks and all that.
Exactly. So it's painting a very optimistic picture,
Yeah.
But of course, the analysis acknowledges that there are still some risks out there.
Right, no investment is completely risk-free.
Exactly. And one of the things it mentions is the increasing competition from other companies that are starting to develop their own custom AI accelerator.
Oh, right. Like, why rely on NVIDIA if you can build your own stuff?
Yeah, especially as AI becomes more strategically important. More companies are going to want to have that in-house expertise.
And control over their own technology.
Exactly. And then there's always the geopolitical stuff,
Oh, right, like trade tensions and all that?
Yeah, exactly. That can create a lot of uncertainty, and potentially disrupt supply chains and market access.
So those are things that investors need to be aware of.
Absolutely. They're macroeconomic factors that can affect even the strongest companies.
So even though NVIDIA seems to be in a good position, they're not totally immune to these bigger global forces.
Right. No one is, but the analysis ultimately comes back to the opportunities. It really emphasizes NVIDIA's strong market position, their innovative product pipeline, and their overall leadership in AI infrastructure.
So they're basically saying that Nvidia has a good chance of navigating those potential risks.
Yeah, they're well positioned to weather the storm, so to speak.
So just to kind of sum up the main takeaway from the analysis is that this recent dip in Nvidia's stock price could be a buying opportunity for long-term investors.
That's right. And it really boils down to their central role in this whole AI revolution.
Right, because they're not just riding the wave, they're like building the wave.
Exactly. And the analysis keeps coming back to this point. NVIDIA's dominance in the AI data center market, their strong financial performance, and those impressive growth prospects.
So they're kind of like the picks and shovels and the gold all at the same time.
Exactly. And they're well positioned to benefit from this transformative trend, as AI becomes more and more integrated into everything we do.
So for our listeners out there, this deep dive into the analysis you shared has hopefully given you some food for thought about NVIDIA.
Yeah, we talked about their dominant position in the AI market, those strong fundamentals they have, even amidst all this market uncertainty.
Yeah, and the analysis suggests that their stock might actually be undervalued right now, given their future potential.
Exactly. And to leave you with one final thought, given NVIDIA's critical role in the world of AI, just think about this. How might their future successes or even, any challenges they encounter really reflect the broader progress and adoption of artificial intelligence across different industries in the years ahead?
There's a big question, right? Because they're so central to all this that their fate is kind of tied to the fate of AI as a whole.
Exactly. It's something to keep in mind as you're thinking about the long-term implications of all this.
Definitely. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.